Everyone thinks they know what coaching is. They picture someone nodding along the way while you talk about your feelings, or a motivational speaker in a blazer telling you to believe in yourself. That's not coaching, and that's not even close. Real coaching, the kind that actually changes how you lead, how you think, how you show up at work, looks nothing like what most people imagine. And today, I've got something with 11 years of doing exactly that. And at the highest level of the profession. I'm Yash, this is Cracking It, and we are about to crack open what actually happens behind the door of a coaching session. And that is pretty exciting to me. My guest today is Aditya Sisodia, an ICF Master Certified Coach with 11 years of coaching experience, working with professionals and leaders across India. He runs his own coaching practice at coachsisodia.com, and he's one of the coaches on the Walnut platform. Aditya, welcome to Cracking It.
Thank you, Yash. It's a pleasure interacting with you.
Yes, Aditya and me go long back before Walnut was even created, and we also have a lot of history. We have done podcasts together. I have seen Aditya practice as well, so this one hits the heart. Uh, Perfect. I want to start with somewhere that is really basic because I think it's where most people are, right? When someone hears the word coaching, Aditya, for the first time, what do they usually think it means, and how far off are they?
That's a pretty interesting question. It all depends upon who is the listener. If we are referring to execs, EXO, they are quite clear. If we are referring to a common ear, for them, coaching is more of a academic institution where academically you are supported.
Let's talk about the execs, right? So, since they have already been at the top of their leadership, right, and they have had experience doing that, I also believe in a certain way that for them to understand what coaching is pretty easy. Then they look for what is in a coach and how they can help us, right? Let's talk about people who do not normally know what coaching is, right? And let's just discuss the myths of coaching, right? In your 11 years, what's the single biggest myth you've had to undo in a first session with a new client?
So, two, three things. First is it's not mentoring, it's not telling. And there's a lot of inner work. Many times people confuse it more of a therapeutic session where they are like the other person will help me resolve my inner demons, inner self doubt from the past. And a lot of time goes into clarifying that coaching is a forward conversation where we focus on future forward, not just your past.
Okay.
So that's the biggest challenge which I see.
I think that is very interesting. And that is what, like, since being in the coaching area for such a long time, I think you've just described it perfectly. Because that is what people come with, right? There's a huge distinction, mentoring, coaching, therapy, right? There are good three pillars, and people often confuse these three into one, right? So whether even if you're going for therapy, they will think that you will be coached and mentored. Whether you're going for mentoring, They will think that you will go for coaching and therapy together. So any moment where someone's expectation of what coaching was going to be was so different from reality that you had to stop and reset, and would love to get some personal insight on one of the sessions maybe.
Again, it happens all the time where people are like, I just come, I'll have a conversation and I get my solution. I need to emphasize it's what you do between the session connect. That is where you will get the real aha moment. So I need to ensure in my very first connect that if you want success during our engagement, please make sure that you are doing your due diligence, your homework on the timelines, on the milestones before. And there is a lot of inner work reflection that is absent because of the different commitment a person goes through family, work, lifestyle. So,
Can I ask you a follow-up question on that, right? Since you talked about a lot about homework, assignments after work, right? After coaching work. We also somewhere I had the mindset that okay, after coaching is something to get them back into the session or for them to actively work upon something in the session. Assignments and assessments are something that is really important, right? So can you shed some light upon the fact that why do we give assignments after coaching, and why there is homework, and why is it necessary to do this as well?
so all these reflective assignments, starting from journaling to capturing your experiences, ensures that the person becomes independent within the committed time frame. Personally, I work for 3 to 6 months, and afterwards, I have a clear distinction that we are not going to work because I don't want codependency in my coach-coachee relationship. Possible if the person starts having those inner conversation, self-talk, reflection, and the psychometric assessment create a baseline for performance.
Okay. And do you recommend that once the baseline is done, do we have other assessments in between the sessions as well? So, for example, if somebody has done a few sessions, then we can compare or see the growth of that baseline? Or is that something that the coach should only be aware of and the growth timeline should not be shown to the coachee?
The assessment are dependent on the topic of coaching based on the competency that is identified. Is it people management? Is it innovation? Is it exec presence? Is it conversational intelligence? Is it leadership transitioning? Assessment can be both documented and observed. And regular assessment ensures that the participant doesn't feel that the coach is pushing their agenda. I use the analogy you go to a doctor. The first thing a doctor does is captures your report to understand how are you operating and post the treatment what you can expect.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting, and really I think it gives some insight on the coaching world for people who do not really know what coaching is, or maybe are on the fence about whether I should do coaching or not. See, it is something that is assessment based, and I think growth timeline anywhere is very important. Back to the myths. Right. Does the myth that you talked about show up with certain types of professionals, more with certain types of professionals, say with senior leaders versus mid-level managers?
Myths are across Coaching is seen more of a developmental tool rather than a performance enhancement tool. We have a problem with so and so leader, let's send him to coaching. Versus this leader is performing at an optimal level, coaching would enhance his performance.
Absolutely. I think I think nowadays in certain companies it is there. I'm seeing the entire change from the past 8 years. There's been a huge shift of people actually recognizing what you were saying, and it's absolutely on point. I feel the fact that seeing the people who are actually performing really good and how we can elevate them instead of the fact that this is something that is not working, and let's see if coaching can fix the problem. So perfect. Now let's move on to coaching versus other things. People often confuse coaching with therapy, mentoring, and consulting. For someone sitting here right now, and as I said, someone sitting on the fence, someone who's a bit fuzzy on the difference, let's just clear it out, right? Let's just clear out coaching, therapy, mentoring, and consulting. How is it different?
So coaching is asking someone about their present and what would they like for their future. Counseling is asking someone about their past. Mentoring is telling someone, hand holding them, guiding them what to do, what not to do. And consulting is telling the other person the problem. Now, all the modalities are effective for holistic development. But then again, you need to be clear how much are you ready to get committed.
Perfect. Can I also ask a follow-up question on this? That does the line actually get blurry sometimes?
Of course.
Right? Because there's so many similarities as you were saying as well. So when does that happen and where does that happen when it gets blurry?
So in India, we want one size fit all, where we are like, I want an entire package in this.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why people are joining. I think I see especially consultants now. Since you are also a part of that, especially consultants now are going with coaches, and they are also it's a group of people, right? They all want the resources because they want to be the one-stop solution, right? Because as you said, now people just want that, okay, everything fixed at one point. When when do you actually recommend, Aditya, someone see a therapist instead of a coach? Because let's call it what it is. Therapy is a clinical science, right? And it requires a different type of understanding of the science than what a coach would do, right? And people often come to me also in the earlier days. I remember, if you remember as well, people would come to us and they would say that is therapy the same thing as coaching, and what's even the difference? So at what time in your session would you actually think that, okay, this is not a coaching client, this is someone who needs to see a therapist maybe instead of coaching?
Clear demarcation when the person haven't healed from their past or experiencing any traumatic event in their life where a therapy would be better suited. I only work with clients who have emotionally healed from their traumatic past.
What if the traumatic past is something that is holding their, like, how, see, we do emotional intelligence as well, right? and while maybe doing some sessions of emotional intelligence, there is something that is PTSD to them, post-traumatic stress disorder, right? So what if that is in the way of coaching, right? The line gets a little bit blurry, right? That they want to work upon their AI and something is troubling them. Then how does that shift happen?
So I work with PTSD, sexual abuse, sexually assaulted, cancer transplant. I work with folks across the globe from different communities, DEIB space. And something which I do is I see a compatibility check where I categorically tell them that this is not my specialization. I won't be able to do justice to your emotions. And I would appreciate that you please seek proper counseling, therapy to work on your emotional wounds. And once you are ready, we are going to be taking it ahead.
Okay. Let's move on, and let's move on to I don't need coaching professionals, right? So there's a certain profile of people or a person, high performing, self aware, driven, who thinks coaching is for people who are struggling, like we said, right? Who thinks I've gotten this far on my own, so why do I need someone asking me questions? What would you say to that person today?
Fine, congratulations, all the best. Do well in life. I don't need to convince someone who's not advocate.
Okay, but have you coached someone who came in with that mindset and then had their view completely changed? And can you tell us what exactly happened maybe in that session?
So initially, during my early ACC days, even at PCC days, I used to be a rescuer. But at MCC level, I'm done rescuing people. I'm like, may your soul rest in peace. God bless you. All the best for your future.
No, Aditya, I remember that. I remember you being a rescuer for sure. Aditya is the nicest person you'll ever meet. I mean, for this podcast as well, I had messaged him about like 2 weeks back and really, really good response. And I remember this about Aditya for sure, and about a lot of coaches. Let's not just put the spotlight on Aditya since he's here, but a lot of coaches in this space, they are rescuers. You know, today if I get a bad client, I also remember this story, short story, that I get a bad client and they would be like, no, 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 no. What is coaching? I don't need coaching. The same question that I asked you. Right? And we would try to convince them that, okay, maybe if you self reflect, then we would make them meet certain coaches. And I believe they said that, okay, this is not for me. I'm not here to convince somebody that they need coaching. I'm here to make them understand, yes. Make them knowledgeable about it, yes. Then they should be self aware. Because I remember that point when they would say that if they are not self aware by themselves, they would not respect the coach enough and they would not respect the process enough for them to actually have a change. Saying that, I think resonating back to Aditya's point is the fact that you need to be open enough. If you feel like you need change in your life and you need to uplift something, you need to have that mindset of, because let's be fair, Aditya, everybody is like that, especially men, are like that. Perfect. Let's get to the crux of the podcast itself, right? I promised the viewers that I would discuss about what actually happens in a session, the inside the room moment, right? So let's push for some concrete examples of you, because you've had that experience with you, right? So let's give viewers something that actually happens, right? Okay. So I want to actually go inside a session. Now walk me through moment by moment what happens from the time a client sits down with you to the time that they leave. What does that hour actually look like? And Aditya, let's not be abstract. Let's be concrete about this. That what would you do?
So if it's an individual or if it's a corporate, the dynamics are the same. Make the payment upfront. This is not I'll experience it, then I'll make the payment. Second is have your evaluation, psychological evaluation. Are you having the headspace to be coached? Then is who are going to be your accountability partner outside the conversation in case you are not approachable, having a strong contracting that this is not a substitute for therapy, counseling, anything and everything we discuss, you are taking ownership of it. If tomorrow you decide anything, the coach cannot be blamed for it or held liable. For example, in corporate setting, many of the participants are like, oh, I have much more potential. I need to move out of there. And then the stakeholder and the sponsors are like, Aditya, what happened to this person? Before coaching, after coaching, he's moving out. So a very clear contracting guidelines are there. And then it is the infrastructure part. Please ensure you are in a distraction-free environment. You are not multitasking, such as checking your emails, answering your phone calls, SMS, texts, DMs. You are not driving. You are not munching. This is not Netflix and chill. And you are having the right headspace. And most importantly, you are having the courage to be a good listener, to be a authentic person in terms of doing your homework. Otherwise, it's just a checklist, meet up, catch up, gossip, formality, and it's over.
Okay, so that is the infrastructure, right? That is the onboarding. Let's talk about the fact that the session itself, right? Let's say I come into a session with you today. What would be the first few things that you would ask me? So I've already done the entire infrastructure.
And what is the topic of discussion? How have we been since our last connect? And what is that today you would like to discuss that will align with our end outcome of our coaching intervention?
Yes. Okay. So since you're an MCC coach, right, are there certain principles that you already have in your mind? Since there has been, okay, let's just imagine that I have already done a baseline check, right, with an assessment, a psychometric assessment. Certain core principles would have been there, right? So you already know my baseline. So would the conversation go towards the low points of my baseline, or would it be somewhere in a general conversation?
So the distinction between ACC, PCC, and MCC is ACC is more on the what action part. PCC is more on the what and the who, the doing and the being part. MCC is absolutely about human potential, the who, the being of the client. If I'm coaching Yash, I'm going to be asking a question reflective, which will make Yash ponder upon who am I? Who would I become in the process? Who all around me would be benefited? It's much longer term rather than a transactional milestone.
Wow, I think I think that clears upon the distinctions of ACC, PCC, and MCC as well. Right, perfect. And a question to that would be, who does what? So do you talk more than the client, or the client talks more? Like what exactly happens?
So if a client is talking more, they need therapy counseling from the past that I could have done this. If the client is talking more, reflecting towards the future, it's a coaching conversation. And a coach is just a sounding board, a scratching post where the coach challenges her person, the coachee, with their thoughts.
I feel one thing that we should mention here is the fact that the right questions, right? Coaching has always been about the coach asking the right questions and your mind. Today, if I watch a YouTube video or I watch anything, right, and suddenly what something would hit me would be something that is, it's like, okay, wow, universe is so big, this and that. So I think the right questions is something that coaching always has, and that's what makes it very interesting. So is there a structure that you follow, Aditya, or is every session just completely different?
Again, depending upon the budget of the client, there is customization. If a person wants ultra customization, ultra premium offering, they are ready. The approach is different versus a standard approach. It depends upon how much the person would like the coach to be involved with their growth. For example, if you are going in for Olympics, coach is going to watch out your mental diet, your physical, your discipline, versus a normal athlete or a person who would like to be fit. So it depends upon the amount of investment, time, money, energy the coachee would like to do.
Let me give you an example of something, right? Today, if there is a session that is happening for you and you have done A1, the baseline assessment, and something is completely different to what I would want to be coached on. So how would that conversation go?
Again, I would be having conversation with the client and understanding their expectation, and then aligning their expectation with the offering. How many weekly connects, how many formal, informal connects we would be, how we would be documenting our session notes, how would we be measuring the success of our conversation during, before, after the connect.
So I've also heard that coaches talk about sitting in silence with the client and just not saying anything, like what we were discussing just a few minutes before, right? That sounds deeply uncomfortable to I think most people, right? So what's actually happening in that moment?
Again, centering happens where a person is able to calm themselves and they open up. Coaching is a space where the coach themselves need to work on their emotions, thoughts, suspend the judgment, and get themselves involved, present in the moment.
And has sorry, but has a client ever walked out on you when that maybe silence was way too much for them?
Of course, multiple times.
And how does
I
that?
tell them, you won't love me,
Yeah,
you will respect me.
yeah.
I won't be nice, I will be direct to you. And they understand the distinction between being nice, being direct, love versus respect. And they know what they are getting into.
Okay, but let's not talk about CXOs, right? Let's not talk about execs, or let's not talk about people on the highest ranks. Let's talk about mid-level managers. Let's talk about leadership positions, right? Let's talk about tier 2 and tier 3, right? How would they react to this? On your honest opinion, you've had such a,
Mhm.
yeah, like how would they react to this? Because execs, I understand, I completely understand. They have been in this industry, they have met different types of people, a lot of people in their life, self-aware, they have gotten to this position because of something, right? So how would they react to this experience of coaching itself? And is ICF MCC the right fit for mid-level managers, leadership position people as well?
I was reflecting because one thing which I do is I do a compatibility check. I make sure that the other person is aware that it's not a solution focus, it's more of a reflective conversation will take time. Do not expect you are going to a doctor, the doctor will give you pills and you will start feeling better. Are you ready to make a commitment just like you make a commitment to building your body in the gym? Just like we treat our body like a temple, are we ready to treat our thoughts like a sanctuary?
Okay. And okay, let's begin on to the fact that all of this is something that is a compatibility check, right? So you are focusing on a person's personality, a person's, an A1, right? So since you're a coach on Walnut now as well, where the clients come in with a personality profile already done, which is the disc ocean enneagram, right? Before you've even met them, how does that change the first session compared to starting completely cold?
So, after going through their personality, I also invite my coaches for an AMA session. Ask me anything. It shouldn't be like you want to know everything about me, coach, but what about me? And in that AMA session, we ensure that both of us are open. After working with different ethnicity across the globe, I observed this thing that in India, we do not open up. Whereas in other ethnicity, the coaches are very clear. I would like to know a bit about my coach before I enroll in this long term. I don't want to know who are you on social media. I want to know who are you as a person. What motivated you to become a coach? And while working with you, what can I expect?
Okay, perfect. Last few questions as well. So let's talk about India's context, right? So you've been coaching in India for over a decade. Is there something specific about the Indian professional context, the culture, the hierarchy, the family dynamics that shapes what comes in a coaching session here compared to what you see written about coaching in the Western frameworks?
India is more of a mentoring driven power hierarchy culture where we need to invite the other person that, hey, we are equals. There is going to be no power play. Let us respect each other's experience. Because people really become skeptical, hey, you are young, how can you be MCC? And I'm like, where it is written for an MCC, you need to have black hair, gray hair, no hair, silver hair. So informing people that coach can be anyone who helps you reflect. This is the common challenge. Even the corporate, they are like, we need someone who is a subject matter expert who can come and mentor rather than challenge us. If we knew, we could have done it ourselves. So
Absolutely, I
that is.
think you're absolutely right on that.
Hmm.
Pinpoint right on that. Okay, and what's the question you wish every client asked you in a first session,
Hmm.
but almost nobody does?
Hmm. Very deep question. I'm like, ask me to challenge you.
Okay,
Because the moment I start challenging someone, they are like, let me get back to you.
I think that's where
So
the
that is.
minds also meet, right?
Hmm.
Perfect. And last question is the same that one I will ask every other guest on this show. And since you're the first guest on this show, and there are many more to come, what's the one thing you tell a professional who's never tried coaching? Someone who's curious but on the fence to help them decide whether it's for them.
It's an experience. You go and watch a movie, regardless how it is. Similarly, come and experience coaching. With Walnut, at least you have the conviction it is there in the market, and we have done our due diligence and everything. And all the coaches are credible in the market. So come experience Atati Devo Baba.
Yeah, I think it really does change a lot in people.
Yeah.
And this was just a specificity into if you're on the fence, what happens in the coaching session, what it is all about. Don't be afraid of this. Be ready for this. But you have to experience it yourself. By listening to this podcast, I hope some people who are on the fence can actually come in and understand what it is all about. Aditya, perfect. I wouldn't take much of your time. This was exactly the kind of conversation I wanted to have with you. 11 years of doing this work, and you still talk about it like it matters every single time. Thank you for being on this show. And Aditya's link is in the description about who he is, where he works in. He's also a coach in Walnut. Maybe in the future, we'll get Aditya for even more questions from the audience. And lovely to speak to you, Aditya. Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you.
Namaste.
You know, the thing that stuck with me the most in that conversation, and I've had a version of it in my own head since I started building Walnut, is how much of coaching is actually about creating the conditions for someone to hear themselves correctly, clearly. Not to be told what to do, not to be fixed, just to actually hear what they already know. Right. So if you've been on the fence, as I said, I hope that conversation nudged you. And if you want to experience it yourself, walnut.coach is where you start. Subscribe if you haven't already. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And I'll see you in 2 weeks.